Welcome to the Enter the Mind podcast, the most real talk, no nonsense podcast on the empowering of the mind. Why enter the mind? Because that's the room in your house that's been there all along that you've never gone into. Well, now it's time to enter with two mind coaches dedicated to self-help and the thriving of all human beings. I'm Robert Nelson, and I'm here with my co-host,
Kyra Carlin.
And we're ready to rock. Kyra, how are you doing today?
I'm doing super well. I made vegan zuppa toscana and it was delicious, like so good. How are you?
Yeah, that does sound good. I'm chilling here. Just got off work a little while ago, and I probably will head back in actually because there's like a big report that I want to get done for tomorrow. And and I have a new principle, which is I go where the energy is flowing, and I have a lot of momentum with that project. And it doesn't make sense to me to stop and then go watch TV for the rest of the night. And then tomorrow I'm going to have to start the engine all back up. Why not keep going while the engine's warm? You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
that's my new outlook.
Love it.
But yeah, so the topic I wanted to discuss today was anxiety. I know I've seen that pop up a lot in your social media, that you're able to help people with anxiety. And it came up as I was going through the book, The Obstacle is the Way. It's a popular self-help book by Ryan Holiday. And it's kind of roughly, it's about stoicism and how when you encounter obstacles, you should just view them just as they are, like objectively, instead of panicked. And he makes this point that, astronauts, you cannot have astronauts that panic. Think about it. If you're in outer space and something goes wrong, it's like, damn, you're like, I think the average person could easily panic. And what's interesting is I've been following this guy on Instagram. His Instagram handle is called Astro Seal. So he is an astronaut. He's currently up in space, but he is also a Navy SEAL. And I'm not sure if you're very familiar with Navy SEALs, but I've been binge watching so many documentaries on Navy SEALs. They have like the hardest training in the world. One of the tests that they have to pass in, it's called BUDS training, in order to become a Navy SEAL, is this underwater task where they have their scuba gear and they wear these weights on themselves to pull them to the bottom of the swimming pool. And so they got the scuba gear on, but they're blindfolded. Then the instructors come in the pool with their own scuba gear, and they call this training thing a shark attack. So the instructor will go down to the trainee and mess with his scuba gear and like unplug it and stuff and like twist the hoses up, and the trainee's like blindfolded, and he needs to without looking, he can't even see what he's doing. He has to untangle the scuba gear, right? It's like while he's underwater. It's like if you're talking about anxiety, that's if you're gonna have anxiety in any moment, that's gonna be the moment. I mean, you're weighted down at the bottom of the swimming pool, and your scuba gear gets pulled out from you. What are you gonna do? It's wild. But so the point I'm trying to make is, it's no coincidence to me that this guy is both a Navy SEAL and an astronaut, because you need the same anxiety management skills in both professions or activities, right? And I don't know if that's kind of the angle that you take on anxiety, but when I think of anxiety, I think that the other side of the coin is sort of the ability to stay calm under pressure. And that would be the case for astronauts, Navy SEALs, where you parachute behind enemy lines, all this stuff. So that's kind of how I look at it. It's like there's the opposite side is very interesting to me, and I try to study it, because if I can try to, dispel or diminish my own anxiety by putting more attention on the other side, then maybe there's some benefit there. But why don't you tell me about, like, what's your approach? What's your perspective on anxiety, and how do you go about navigating it
Thanks for asking. First, I want to say, wow. I mean, like, that's like, it's such an interesting perspective. And like, it must be honestly like a gem, like a golden gem to be an astronaut or trained like the Navy SEALs do, because those are definitely like outrageous sort of tests of anxiety. Because I'm thinking about like, I mean, like, I am an anxiety coach because I know how to cure my anxiety, but like, if I'm like thinking about if I were up in space and like all of a sudden like my mind starts going, you know, and it starts going, and all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on here? Like, where I'm out in space, like, is this even real? Like, what's gonna happen when I get home? You know, like there would be like all of these thoughts, and those thoughts, like when you're in space, can really, I feel like, hit you because you're in space. It's not like you can go outside and go for a walk or get some fresh air. You're
Right.
in a spaceship. That's some other shit. But my like actual approach to anxiety, like what I view anxiety as, is the resistance to new information, like new download, and like, because like people can sometimes like get anxiety over going I don't know, like heights, right? So it's like heights. Like they're scared to go up in this height. And then like when they're going up in the height, like say they're trying it and they start getting anxiety and they're like, oh, I need to come down, I need to come down, I need to come down. You're resisting your actual the changing of like your body and like your thoughts. Because I personally believe that your anxiety is a it's almost like an attachment to like to a specific thought or belief. Like it's a pure attachment. And if you start to let that attachment go, you're kind of like, well, what am I like? What else isn't real in my life? Or I'm like, when people could have like a panic attack. Like when you have a panic attack, it's almost like you're dying. And like I have a theory that like you feel like you're dying because that thought is, you're so attached to that thought that if you start to diminish the thought and like move forward with your life and your evolution of the mind, you feel like you're dying because a piece of you is dying. um so that's like my approach to anxiety. uh what do you have to say?
Yeah, I think you bring up like a lot of cool and interesting concepts about it, like resistance and attachment are two words that I don't immediately think of when I hear anxiety, but I think it's they're so related to each other. And I kind of like the way you explain it because resistance is uh, that word also shows up in physics, specifically the study of electricity. There's, these, you have resistors to kind of limit current in these electrical circuits. And so now I'm trying to, put my thinking cap on and see if there's any connection there that could be made. That was a great example of like you're at the top of a mountain and you're scared of the heights and then you just want to come back down. Because I know what that's like, and then I know what it's like to resist that feeling, but the resistance is almost like, I don't know what you're resisting. I guess you're resisting the possibility that you could get hurt in that situation, right? Or that you could die. Like what how does that resistance thing work?
Because it's like so like I'll relate it to a story of mine. I one time had a panic attack because I was like with some people, and I don't know, we had been like partying for a few days. This is when I was like a big like partier. We've been partying for a few days, and I remember I couldn't, I just like, I wasn't entirely comfortable in the situation. And then I couldn't get into the bar because I didn't have my ID. So like they all went into the bar and I was just like in the car. But like I remember I thought I was gonna die. Like I literally thought I was gonna die. Like I laid down and I took off all my clothes in front of the bar, laid on the ground naked because I thought like God was going to take me.
Wow.
And when I think back on that moment, I remember what I was thinking at the time. And I remember I was sort of shifting towards a new desire for life, a new way that I wanted to live my life. It's almost like I was miserable, and a new creation of life was trying to push itself out, and I was holding on to it. So I was attached because I was scared of moving on and leaving everything behind that I had ever known. So when I say resistance, I'm saying like resistance to that shifting towards a new creation of life. And when you resist that, you're holding on so tightly to something that legitimately like does not exist in you anymore. It's dying. And you have to sit through it. You just have to sit through that resisting towards a new creation of life. And if you don't sit through it and you sort of let your thoughts really take control of you, then that's when the anxiety and the panic attack comes on. I mean, a panic attack is like a really severe form of it, but like anxiety, like it's just you holding on to what truthfully doesn't exist in you anymore. It's dying off in you. And we all know that like as within, so without, you know, as above, so below, it has to come in first in order to come out here. So you've birthed something new inside of you, and it's trying to come out. And the old thing that was inside of you is dying. It's dying off. It's going back to the quantum realm where it came from. And people have anxiety because they're holding on. I personally believe that. Did I give you a better point of the resistance?
Yeah, definitely. That opens up a whole new door here, because this concept of something old dying off and needing to open yourself to something new, that makes a lot of sense. And I like the depth in that. You know, I'm always going for these like deeper layer understandings. You know me, right?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't think I ever thought about it like that. So anxiety.
What's it pulling up now for you? Like what ideas?
Well, I just thought about like the astronaut guy, because I don't know if this was in a movie or whatever, but it's sort of, I would guess that's sort of the stereotypical, you know, nightmare, astronaut nightmare would be, you know, you kind of somehow get disconnected from the space shuttle and just sort of start floating into space, into like nothingness.
Ooh.
Right? Like, which is trippy. And you're like, but you have that image in your mind, right? Like it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yes.
Now, check this
Very
out.
good image.
Check this out. Those little astronauts with that connected cord to their little space shuttle, and if that cord gets severed and the astronaut wanders off into space, into death, is that not like a newborn being separated from its mother?
Yes.
And so anxiety begins at the birth, at the beginning of our life. The first experience we have of life is separation.
Wow. That's good.
And
I can totally see that.
what if every instance in our life from that point on of anxiety is simply a recreation of that feeling of the initial separation, introduction to human life.
Ooh. Ooh. That is so good. Wow. Now, what if you're right, which I'm sure it could be applied because I see many ways that that leads me to believe in what you just said. I like it because, you know, we are, oh my God. Okay, so we are an accumulation of like our experiences in life. And if our first experience is that sort of separation, whether consciously or unconsciously, but I'm pretty sure like we have a conscience in the womb. I don't remember like how soon it is, but like before we're born, like we have that consciousness. So we know that we're like this thing, this stomach that we're inside, uterus, I don't know. But we're inside and we know that it's giving us life. And so when it's cut, we have to learn that separation, and we have to understand that like we are now not inside this cushy thing that's keeping us so cushy. We're now like out in the open air. And it gave me this idea that, so if it reminds me of not, so you said it in a physical form, which is a great outlook, which can also pair with, so it's like when we're detaching from a thought, we're going out into space, because there is now space for new thought to come in, and we're terrified. Like we're terrified of it, because that cord has been cut from our spaceship, and now we are wandering out into space, and we don't have our cord to keep us safe anymore because we've lost that belief, and now we have to go out into space and find whatever it is that's coming in and allow new information in, which is really, really interesting, because if this is true, this is such a great, like a great theory right here. If this is true, then people with anxiety are just still learning to, it's just an old habitual initial feeling that has been repeated time after time in our lives. And if the average human does suffer from anxiety, like day to day, or every now and then everyone is kind of just experiencing that habitual initial feeling of anxiety when being cut from the womb. And we have unconsciously transformed it into thought, because our mind is so strong, and our mind probably remembers that happening so much, like so deeply, that we carry it on through our lives. Now the question is, would the human race become better and more stable if they took this idea into action, brought it to the consciousness, and figured out a way to rewire the human brain to not have anxiety over new thoughts coming in and old thoughts leaving? Such an attachment.
Right. I thought you were going to end that by saying, what if humans just from now on were just raised in in like labs, like without connection to the mother? But if you think about it, what do they call that? Is that in vitro fertilization or something? In the lab, you just put a sperm and an egg together. I don't know.
I don't know what it's called.
But that would be a way to test the theory. It's always hard to test these theories that, I mean, this theory I'm talking about is almost like a Freudian style theory, like a psychoanalytic, psychodynamic theory. It's like, oh, your connection to your mother explains all of your life, right? And those theories are very hard to test. But this would be a way that you could test it, is, if you had someone, for instance, do babies that were born via C-section, do they have different anxiety experiences versus babies who were born through the birth canal? I mean, in both cases, they're both, you still have to sever the umbilical cord, but it's still a different sort of experience. But that would be a way to test this sort of hypothesis I'm putting forth of, maybe your first experience in life really influences your later emotional experiences of life. But I mean, that's for scientists to study. We're not going to do that experiment right now and here. So as for our discussion, though, I think the question you raised at the end of that was, you were saying, what if you could rewire the brain to what was it, to relate differently to your thoughts, or to maybe not cling so tightly to old thoughts? Was that the point you were making?
Yeah, not cling to them. Like not cling to them for life, pretty much.
Yeah, it's so this idea of clinging to thoughts. It's so,
It's
and
like, have you ever been stuck on a thought?
I would say so, yeah.
So it's like that times like 1,000.
The image that, or the thought that comes to mind is when I believe something that's not true. Like,
Mm.
let's say, what's an example? Let's say, I hear a loud radio outside, and I live in a downtown area, right? So sometimes these people, these homeless people have their Bluetooth speakers, and they just like to blast it on full volume and just walk down the sidewalk. Um, let's say I hear that outside. I might immediately think, oh, homeless person, right? And and I and then I start having all these ideas about, like, oh, there's, this homelessness problem. It's really bad. And this, and I just grow and cultivate that one idea, just then gives birth to so many other ideas, but I very well could end up walking over to the window looking outside, and it's like a college student with a backpack that's just like,
Mm-hmm.
because the university is right here, and then I have to face the facts that, like, I was clinging so tightly to this thought that was false, and now clearly I see the evidence that I was wrong, but my mind just had a field day with this initial uh, initial assumption that I made, right? That I took for truth. And
Mm-hmm.
I took it and just grew it. It's trippy, but I mean, it's just one example, but I think that happens to all human beings all over the planet. They hear one thing, they get a text message or whatever, and their mind starts going, oh, that's because he or she, blah, blah, blah. And, and they like me or they don't like me or blah, blah, blah. And their just mind goes nuts on, this one idea. And I think that can generate a lot of anxiety. For instance, you don't get a text message back from someone and you start thinking, oh, did I do something wrong? Do they not like, right? And it's all of these ideas and thoughts that just start like sprouting and flowering off of this one false assumption. But
Mm-hmm.
see what I mean?
Yeah, I love that, and I really got a good image. I got a really good understanding from when you said, like you're sitting at your desk and then you hear that, and then it's like, oh, it's probably a homeless person, and then I don't know, maybe like a question could be like, I wonder what he looks like. I wonder what he's wearing. I wonder where he lives. I don't know, just like all these questions, right? And like, but for what? Because it wasn't even real. Like that's not even what it was. Um, which is really really cool, and there's definitely a difference to it, like than the texts, like the text for example, because like you can't you can't peep into their reality, you can't just like pop in their reality and be like, oh, they're just doing homework, and then like pop back out and be like, all right, well I guess it's cool, because like when the texts come in, I mean it's definitely because our brains love to link things together, and that's how like our brains know things. So like if you have had experience in the past with somebody like not answering your text, and then this person doesn't answer your text, and then you're like, is this happening again? Which stems and flowers into all these ideas and then feelings, and it's quite horrible. It's really not a fun time, but it's really interesting to take a look into that. I really like how you said have a field day. Because it's so true. Like they're kind of just having a goddamn field day. Like they're just kicking shit around when it's probably not even true, but it becomes true because your vibration is, since you're thinking about it so much and then you're feeling about it so much, your vibration then sends off a signal and the universe is going to be like, okay, so like which causes the anxiety, I think, because then you learn this habitual feeling of this is going to happen when this happens, and which sends off another vibration. So it's really great to think of it like that. It's so interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I wonder how this all relates back to birth and death. What do you think?
I think it's pretty much the same concept, right? Like if we initially have this thought, we birth this thought, and then it maybe not. Let me finish. So if we birth this thought, oh, it's probably a homeless person outside, and then we realize that it's not true, so we have to let that go. But that one can't be that hard to let go. It's more like a belief that like say like I am worthy or something, but like say like I am unworthy. So then like you have to cut the cord to that baby, even though the baby would be going back to the quantum realm. You'd have to cut the cord to that baby, and then you'd have to birth a whole new baby because something wholly new is coming in. And then you have to go through that process again of cutting the umbilical cord, but this time in like a good way. So I'm not entirely sure how it can relate. I don't know if that made much sense. What do you think how it could relate?
Well, that generated a few ideas for me. I think that um, there's a significant feeling of comfort with the familiar, and I think that goes not only for, you know, knowing your city very well or knowing your way around your own house, but also for thought patterns. I think that people have a lot of comfort with certain thought patterns
Uh-huh.
that they have.
Yeah.
And I've, in the past, I've said things like, I've been speaking with some of my more philosophical friends, and I've said, what are you trying this philosophy on, like a new T-shirt or something? And it's because they're trying this whole new approach to life, and it's strange because it changes it changes the way that you feel towards them. It changes the way they feel. So there's this, I feel on the one hand, humans have this one drive towards the attachment, the clinging, and the keeping things as they are.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the same time, I feel like sometimes humans have this drive towards novelty, towards, I think that one of the reasons, I've always thought that one of the reasons people like to go on vacation, meaning like visit a new place or, go on a road trip, is because of the novelty, and their mind does not know what to expect. So they're immediately pulled into the present moment 100%. Now that's in contrast to, you having a thought here?
I see that. Keep going.
Because me in this apartment here, and I hear the music blasting outside, and I think, oh, it's another homeless person. Here we go again. That cannot happen on a vacation, because you go to a new town, you hear this music outside, and you're like, oh, is it a concert? Is it a surfer that's walking down the sidewalk? Is it this? Is it that? Like, you don't know. And so you kind of just, instead of your mind just making an assumption and running with it, you actually go experience it and to find out what it is. And so I think when people go on vacation, they're just immersed in the moment. They come out of their mind and into the actual world, because what I described about having the field day with your mind and having all of these false assumptions and creating stories, that's the definition, I think, of being in your head. You know, when people say, oh, you know, so and so, you know, I'm just in my head so much. You can't be in your head when you go on vacation, because you in your head there is no roadmap for what you're about to encounter. So you cannot go run. You can't go running back to your head and just hide in there and just live the roadmap that's up here, because there you don't have one. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. That's something that I have never thought about, but I've actually been trying to figure out. Because I feel so damn good when I'm on vacation. I'm like, shit, this is so nice. Like, what am I gonna do today? The energy is so good. Like, I'm on vacation. But I never thought of it to be because my brain has no expectancy theory. Like there's no expectancy in my brain because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm on vacation. So you're really there and you're really present. And anxiety is probably something that won't come along much on a vacation. But then again, other people could get anxiety while going on a vacation because they don't know what to expect. So like they could be used to, you know, their certain life back at home. And then when they're on vacation, they get anxiety because they're like, what am I doing? I don't know if I have a routine. What's going on back home? You know, so I think the question that I really want to rise is why do we care so much about these things? Like what I feel like it has to do with, I don't know if it's ego or if it's identity, but it's like all these questions like what's going on? I wonder what they're doing back home. I wonder what's going on at work. Why do we care? Is that because we place ourselves fully in the present moment at those things, so then when we're on vacation, or you know, that our body remembers those habitual thinking patterns and feeling patterns? I'm pretty sure it's known as the expectancy theory. Our brain winds up like wondering what to expect next. So like when we have nothing to expect next, we make something up in our mind to cling to an identity, instead of cutting that umbilical cord and going out into space. That's what came up for me.
Yeah, I think to answer sort of your question about the vacation thing, if someone's on vacation and they start to think back to their house that they live in, and if they're worried about, oh, did I leave the garage door open or something like that, the way I see that is they're in their head at that moment, because they're not on the beach in the Bahamas. They're actually in front of their house in their mind, looking at their garage door, trying to, you know, decipher if it's open or closed. And so, yeah, that sort of defeats the purpose of the vacation, and that's why that sort of a vacation would not be enjoyable. But I kind of understand it as it would be the person's in their mind, not in the present moment.
Interesting. And it's like, so anxiety is definitely images like going on in your head. It's like thoughts and images. So at any given moment, we really can stop our anxiety by thinking of other things, but we're so attached to that one belief that it's hard for people to switch roads, like switch gears when they get anxiety, because they've already been imaging these things, and then they have this strong belief that if they've already been thinking about it, then it's going to be on their mind. And so there's like another limiting belief that can really hold people back from like living here in the present moment and living in the now, don't you think?
Yeah, and I know that Eckhart Tolle books, those books, gained such a popularity. And I think that if I understand correctly, the message of them is to be present to the moment,
Mm-hmm.
which would mean not being in your head. And that's I do think there's a lot of therapeutic value to that. I think that's what happens when people go to concerts. They kind of get out of their head in the, you know, in the music, in the moment. I think when people go to parties, they get they become in the moment. I think that when you do improvisation class, that is very much in the moment. Acting classes, very much in the moment. So all of these things that, like, I guess the question to ask would be, if you look at the human species and what sort of recreational activities that they engage in, we would need to ask, why do they find those activities so, you know, therapeutic or enriching or whatnot? And does it have any relation to clinging versus letting go, or to resisting versus accepting, versus, you know, or being separated, as in umbilical cord being cut, versus versus joining. What's the opposite of separation? It would be right, combining, joining.
Combining, yeah.
So when people go to like a concert and they're jumping up and down with everybody else, listening to the music, they're almost sort of melding with the group rather than separating from, you know, from the crowd. So it's almost like a reverse birth. It's almost like if you can reattach back to the mother, right? It's sort of like, then you're reattaching to another human, to another life energy form. And when people go to concerts and they're, you know, they're synchronized with everyone else and they're listening to the same music, jumping up and down at the same rate, they're almost conjoining back to another life form the same way that they were, you know, during pregnancy, joined with the mother. It's almost like you see what I mean? It's like a reverse separation thing. It's like an anti-separation. So there it goes. The solution to all of life is anti-separation.
So then, what if because when you're cutting the umbilical cord, you're doing the separation, but what if the way that the world works, what if God set up a detailed plan on how to get us back to feeling in that moment? And that can happen from ways through large energetic and physical stimulation. Like, have you ever gotten a massage and completely drifted off into another world? Because you're stimulated. And when you're at a concert, the bass is so loud, the ground is shaking, everyone's energy is so up, like you're then stimulated physically and energetically. Or when people go skydiving, what else can you think of when you're going skydiving? Like, not much, because you're falling through the air, you're stimulated by the air, and then you're energetically stimulated because this is something new, and you almost have to use all of your energy to sort of feel it, adjust to it, instead of using your energy to create mental thoughts and mental scenarios that aren't even real. I mean, they can be real, but they're not real until you make them real. So what if all these activities are here and like all of these different things for us to engage in anti-separation so that we can feel that mother again, that mother of feeling safe and present and you know, just completely cared for. But I feel like anxiety comes along when we feel like we're not cared for, like because we've got all these thoughts in our minds that are bouncing around. But when we are stimulated enough to take those thoughts out, then we understand, oh, I'm back in connection instead of anti-separation, and then those feelings of anxiety go away. But again, on the other hand, there are people who have anxiety in large crowds, and I think that that's because, once again, you're meshing, you're anti-separating, you're meshing with life and connecting to divine source. And my arms look so funny, but connecting to divine source. And when you're connecting to divine source and all those thoughts go away, some people get that anxiety because they're like, well, where are my thoughts? Where are my thoughts? I thought I was this person, and now I'm being this person. Who am I? What am I? You know, so people can start flipping out like due to that as well.
Yeah, I think that makes it really clear, this phenomenon of the clinging. Yeah, which is super dope. I never thought of anxiety as clinging, but yeah,
You kind of see it now, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially with what you threw in today. It's outrageous.
Right on, yeah. But a deeper meaning of anxiety. Well, I think we gotta wrap up pretty soon. Any final thoughts, comments, conclusions?
Not much. I mean, always thank you for listening. And if you are having trouble with anxiety, go ahead and follow me at Try Tragedy on Instagram. And you can go ahead. I actually have a freebie out right now, but I'm taking it down sometime this week. So if you want like a whole new perspective on reality, like what me and Robert gave you tonight, then you can go ahead and click that link in my bio.
Right on, yeah. And my Instagram is Existence First. So go follow both of those, and we'll be back next week for another episode. Talk to you soon.